Hello everyone. Welcome to SJ's classes. We will discuss a poem today. We have discussed a few poems earlier as part of your paper An Introduction to Literary Studies. We discussed poems like Annabel Lee by Edgar Allan Poe, To a Skylark by P.B. Shelley, and also John Milton's pastoral elegy Lycidas. I'd also like to remind you at this point that we also discussed two important works which actually introduced you to the world of literature as well as two genres specifically, poetry and drama. And those two works are What is Literature by Swapna Gopinath and An Introduction to Literary Studies by Mario Clara. So these are the works we have discussed so far. Today we will read a sonnet written by an American poet, and her name is Edna St. Vincent Millay. Before we read the poem, let me point out some of the important details from her biographical as well as literary career. This is Edna St. Vincent Millay. She was one of the most successful and respected poets in America. She was born on this 22nd of February 1892 in Rockland, Maine. Maine is a state in New England. When you hear the state name New England, please don't be under the impression that this forms a part of, or this particular region forms a part of England. This is actually a region of northeastern United States, which comprise states like Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, etc. So it's actually in the United States. Now coming back to our poet, she is noted both for her dramatic works, which includes work like Aria di Capo, The Lamb and the Bell, and also the libretto. Libretto are the words of an opera or musical play. And her famous opera is titled The King's Henchman, which was the most popular American opera up to its time. She is also popular for lyric verses like Renaissance and the poems found in the collections A Few Figs from Thistles, 2nd April, and the Ballad of the Harp-Weaver. The Ballad of the Harp-Weaver is important because it's for this particular poem that she won the Pulitzer Prize in 1923. She took an interest in poetry early in life, publishing her first poem at the age of 14 in St. Nicholas Magazine, a publication for young people. So she was interested in poetry and she exposed her interest in poetry by publishing her very first poem at the age of 14. And she did this in a magazine which was meant for young people. She was encouraged by her mother to pursue the craft of poetry, and eventually she published several poems towards the end of her teenage years. And Renaissance, which was published in 1912, which is the title poem in her breakout collection, brought Millay her first acclaim as a writer. It is to be noted that her novels appeared under the name Nancy Boyd, and Edna St. Vincent Millay, she refused to, offers which were put forth to her by publishing houses to write novels in her own name. She rejected them and she kept on writing with the pen name Nancy Boyd. And it's also St. Vincent Millay who coined the popular phrase, "My candle burns at the both ends." This particular expression means to exhaust someone's energies or resources by leading a hectic life, or to engage in an activity, usually work related, from early morning until late at night. So she is also someone who contributed towards the development of English language by coining this particular phrase, "My candle burns at both ends." And the kind of works that she wrote earlier, Now, there was something peculiar about those works. There was a stylish cynicism which you find in her early works, but later on, the works which she wrote in her later years, were more of personal and mature writing. And she produced, particularly in her sonnets and other short poems, a considerable body of intense lyrical verse. Lyrical verses are verses which convey, very intimate feelings of the poet. A final collection of her verse appeared posthumously as Mind the Harvest in 1954. It is in October. It is on October 18, 1950, in New York that she breathed her last. So that is all regarding the poet. Let me also give you a brief introduction to the sonnet that we are about to read. I hope you are familiar with the term sonnet. It's a poem of 14 lines, and this particular poem is a Petrarchan sonnet, which means that it follows the Petrarchan model of writing sonnets. It will be divided into an octave consisting of 8 lines and a sestet containing 6 lines. And altogether, we have 14 lines. And we have a specific rhyme scheme as well. I'll talk about that a bit later on, but let me introduce you to this particular work. This sonnet first appeared in Millay's 1923 collection, The Harp-Weaver and Other Poems. I quoted this work earlier and pointed out why this work collection is important, because it's for this collection and for this particular poem that she won the Pulitzer Prize. The title of the poem is drawn from the first line of the poem because Millay gave the piece no full title. So the title or the title by which this particular poem is known is actually the very first line of the poem. Now, this poem introduced a new perspective on concepts such as gender, sexuality, lust, intimacy, and human relationship, and ultimately challenging social standards at a time when sex, sexuality, and the treatment of women by men and society were still approached in a very conservative manner in comparison to today. So she is much like Kamala Das. You can equate her to Kamala Das, who spoke about feminine sensibility and sexuality. Someone who openly spoke about female sexuality. Now, in this poem, Edna also explores the feelings of a woman's feeling of a lover, and she breaks, many societal expectations surrounding the role of women at that particular time through this poem. Although the poem is written using a classical form, its frank portrayal of lust and women's sexuality subverts many traditional expectations for sonnets as well as for depictions of women. So, this is the contribution that Edna made through this particular poem, or Edna as a writer did for the society. She openly, honestly spoke about some of the things which were, treated with, which were treated conventionally, or which were treated in a conservative manner by the then society. Now, as I said earlier, this poem is written in the form of a Petrarchan sonnet, and we have a definite rhyme scheme. The rhyme scheme of the poem is ABBA, ABBA, CDC, DCD. Now, ABBA forms the octave, which are the first 8 lines, and CDC, DCD forms the sestet, which are the remaining 6 lines. So that is all about the poem. Now let's read the poem. Let's read the octave first, which means the first 8 lines. I, being born a woman and distressed by all the needs and notions of my kind, am urged by your propinquity to find your person fair, and feel a certain zest to bear your body's weight upon my breast. So subtly is the fume of life designed to clarify the pulse and cloud the mind, and leave me once again undone, possessed. So there you have the octave. Now let's try to read the poem line by line and try to interpret the lines. The poem begins with the personal pronoun I, and This shows that the perceptions and convictions that she is about to share through this particular work or the following lines are her own. So this is written on a kind of personal note. I. It begins with I. I, being born a woman and distressed by all the needs and notions of my kind. Distress means, afflicted or troubled by. So she is born a woman and she is distressed or troubled by all the needs and notions of my kind. So she, as a woman, is troubled by all the ideas and desires of my kind. My kind here refers to women, her gender. Am urged by your propinquity. Propinquity means, close proximity. Am urged by your propinquity means I am attracted to you. So we have two characters in this poem. One is the speaker, and from the speaker's narration, we understand that there is someone else, and we interpret him as the lover, as not exactly as the lover, but someone for whom she has some sort of excitement, enthusiasm for. So she says, I'm urged by your propinquity. She says, I'm attracted to you when you are physically close to me. When you are near me, I'm attracted to you. I'm urged by your propinquity to find your person fair and feel a certain zest to bear your body's weight upon my breast. So the poet says that I feel a certain zest. So she earlier said that now when you are near me, I am attracted to you. I feel a particular urge in me, and you are a person who is very much fair, and it's probably that makes me feel a certain zest. Certain means some kind of a vigorous enthusiasm for something. So she says that I feel a certain zest, and I long to bear your body upon my breast or on top of me. She is longing to have him on top of her. Am urged by your propinquity to find your person fair, and feel a certain zest to bear your body's weight upon my breast. So these are areas where she openly speaks about the kind of feelings that she have, the feelings that she has regarding this particular man. So subtly is the fume of life designed to clarify the pulse and cloud the mind, and leave me once again undone, possessed. So the poet or the speaker says, lust has been so subtly or cleverly designed. The fume of life here refers to lust. So she says, lust has been so subtly means, in a clever manner or in a strange manner, subtly or cleverly designed to clarify. To clarify here means to quicken, to increase your heartbeat, your pulse. So to quicken the pulse and cloud the mind. Cloud the mind here might mean to be unable to see things clearly or to make clear-cut decisions. So when you're so full of lust, you won't be able to make clear-cut decisions. So subtly is the fume of life designed to clarify the pulse and cloud the mind. So it's lust which clouds the mind, which resists you from taking certain decisions, which increases your heartbeat, your pulse, and leave me once again undone, possessed. So again she is possessed by this particular enthusiasm, by the propinquity or the close proximity of that particular person. Now let's read the sestet, which are the remaining six lines. And as I said earlier, it's in the octave that the poet states a particular problem, and it's in the sestet that the poet finds a resolution or a solution to the problem that was stated earlier. So the problem that the speaker of the poem or the poet, states here is the lust that she feels for a particular man, and it was not quite unbecoming of a woman to openly speak about these kind of things back then, and that is why she was often she became popular then, or she was someone who became she was someone who led to the empowerment of women. Her poetry became a cause for the empowerment of women. Okay, let's read the sestet. Think not for this, however, the poor treason of my stout blood against my staggering brain. I shall remember you with love, or season my scorn with pity. Let me make it plain. I find this frenzy insufficient reason for conversation when we meet again. So she says, after the octave in the sestet, she says, think not for this, however, the poor treason of my stout blood against my staggering brain. I shall remember you with love, or season my scorn with pity. Let me make it plain. So she says, however, don't think that just because my stout blood here refers to her passionate body. So just because her passionate body has treason means betrayed. So please don't think that just because my stout blood or my passionate body has treasoned or betrayed my staggering means weak, staggering or weakening brain or mind, that I will remember you with love or suppress my scorn. Scorn means lack of respect. So please don't be under the impression that just because my passionate body betrayed my mind, because my emotions took the better of me, that I will suppress my scorn for you, that I will suppress the lack of respect that I have for you, or that I will remember you with love. Please don't be under any such misinterpretation or misunderstanding. Let me make it plain. So let me make it clear to you. I find this frenzy insufficient reason for conversation when we meet again. And look at how she concludes the sonnet. She concludes by saying that this frenzy or the lustful excitement that she feels at present is not enough of a reason for her to even speak when they meet again. So she says that I might not even speak to you again when I meet you next. And the lustful, excitement that she feels now is not a reason enough for I to talk to you when the next time we both meet. So that is where the poem ends. Now, so the poem is basically an exploration into the feelings of a woman regarding a man. And it is a break from conventions as it does not conform to the societal expectations surrounding the role of a woman. Women are not supposed to, or rather, no, we are not supposed to honestly or openly speak about these things, especially during the times Edna St. Vincent Millay wrote. So, in that manner, this is definitely a poem which breaks the societal expectations. She openly, Edna Vincent Millay, openly and honestly speaks out her heart, and especially regarding things like sex and sexuality. So, this is where we will end today's session. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have understood the poem in its totality. I hope you have a clear understanding, or I was able to give you a proper introduction to the poet and the poem as well. So, thank you so much.